All right, so we're working on a 95 E350. I think this particular style is 92 to 96, although even the newer ones are pretty similar. And the symptom I had was that the heater control system would not do anything at all. It just would not power on, no fan, no nothing, you know, regardless of where you put this knob or anything, it would, you know, and even this, like, even just from the driving wind, just having what little bit of air you get from the driving winds going through, you would not get any hot or cold air. Would not switch between the top and bottom vents, and no fan, no rear fan, nothing. Basically would completely not do anything. Usually if something does nothing at all, the first thing to check is the fuse. Now, I usually like to, in addition to just checking the fuse itself, it's good to check that you have power to each circuit, right? So I like to actually put up a voltmeter, you know, find you a good ground, and then check, in fact, check your voltmeter first, right? So you first go, you know, make sure that your actual ground is working. Every time you check something, you know, make sure that your ground is good, make sure that you're, you know, when you check power, that you get a voltage, right? You check the fuse on both sides, make sure you got 12 volts or 13 volts or whatever on both sides of the fuse to make sure there's power to that circuit. Then the next thing to do is actually to check this, how to take the dash panel off. There's some trim pieces that look like this. This is an ashtray, but there's another trim piece over here. So you can just pull that off by hand, and then there's some screws behind it that hold the dash on. So there's a screw here. Above the instrument panel, there's some screws, 2 screws over here. And then there's another trim piece that goes over here. And there's 2 screws behind it. There's one over there, and there's one over there. And then the hardest part actually is the headlight switch. So you see this black piece, it screws on, and so you have to unscrew this, and then when you pull the headlight switch out, then you can get you some space here. Now you can't pull the headlight switch all the way out, it stops, and so this will prevent you from getting the headlights, getting the instrument bezel off. And there's a button on top of the headlight switch that when you push it, then you can get the knob out. I don't know if I can do it with one hand now, but yep, there you go. You see I pushed the button, now the knob goes out. And the only reason I had it back in is because now the headlights are on, and so it's drawing power, but that's how you get it out. Now, when you have the headlight, the bezel still here, you can't really get at that with your finger. So the older cars, you could get in through the bottom, but you can see there's like a whole bunch of metal pieces and whatnot here. This one you cannot get your hand in from the bottom. The only way I've been able to get at it is go through here and find the thing. I was actually using my other finger just to guide it, just to put this thing on top and do like this to push the button down. I don't know, there might be a official Ford tool that makes that easier, but that's how I went about it. And so once you get that out, then you can more clearly work with this. And what I found actually was that this whole switch had just completely popped apart. You see it with the zip ties around it. I think it's glued together. It's got little clips in here. You see these little holes, the black plastic pieces, little clips that sit in these little holes that hold it together, and those had just aged and popped apart. And this thing, if you look from the bottom, you see when I move the lever, you see I moved the lever, you can see it moving in there. Alright, so that's how that works, and that has some slide contacts in here that then, and this is the main power connector, so that tells you that powers up the whole thing, and that's why nothing was powering up even though the fuse and everything was okay. And then this yellow piece is a vacuum switch, so there's a plastic piece in here that has like a groove basically that moves a vacuum thing in here, and then so these lines here, these are not wires, these are actually vacuum hoses, and so that's what makes your selects between like the floor and the dash vents and the defrost that goes through here. So if that part's not working, if you're getting the hot air, cold air fan, but it's only going to the floor, then you have to check these vacuum lines. So once I put this back together, it actually worked. So with that, actually the fan was working, I got the different valves working, AC was working, but I still wasn't getting any heat. When you take the screws out, then this will come off, and this will come out, and then there's, and so I spent a bunch of time trying to figure this part out, and you see there's only 3 wires coming off of this, so basically all this has is it's just like a giant resistor, just like a volume knob, you know, so it just has gives like a sliding voltage between the 2 extremes. So there's only 3 wires that goes from one end to the other, and then the return signal just gives like a voltage that's intermediate between the 2 end voltages. So it's real simple, like I say, just like a volume knob in a amplifier. And what I found out is, like, as I bent this back and forth, it was working and not working, and so I eventually found this number 5 pin was the one that was intermittent, and so I touched it up with a good blob of solder, put some flux on it, you know, clean off some of the trace, scrape off some of the insulation, and put the solder joint on there. Now it's consistently working. So a little bit about this system. So the main control box is actually here. It's this little box. So now it mounts up in there. It's very hard to see around the corner. It's got 4 screws. The door you see in the distance with that vacuum pot that does the recirculation, and it was in the way. 1x2 little stick of wood, and just hold that door open. That retracts the arm to the cylinder, to the vacuum pot, and that's how you can get at some of the screws. So the way this circuit board works is it has a little motor, as you can see. That's a DC motor, and then this is a slide contact right there. So one of these pink ones is the power that just has 12 volts power going to it from the fuse box, and then the other pink one returns like 5 volts to the heater control knob. And then so this brown and green wire are the other side. I think the brown had 5 volts on it, and then the green one is the return signal. The black one I think is a ground. The black and white one is just a ground. And so this has a slide contact, so when the arm turns, I'll show you the arm in a minute, then that gives it a signal. And then I think this is just like an analog comparator that compares the analog signal of the slide resistor to in here to the slide resistor that's in the dashboard. And so whenever they're not equal, it turns on the motor in either one direction or the other. Whenever you move the knob and then this slide resistor doesn't match the position of the slide resistor in the dashboard, then it will move one way or the other to match the position of the slide resistor in the dash. This board was actually working okay for me. I had no issues with this. So here's the inside of that box. So there's a slide resistor. So this piece moves the arm of the heater door, and then you see as it turns, it moves that slide resistor piece, right? Those metal contacts drag on the slide resistor on the circuit board, and then when the motor turns, the motor sits right here. The motor turns these gears. That's the gear reduction. All right, well, hope that helps you if you get a similar issue with these. Not real complicated, so hope this helps you figure out your vehicle. And this one could be fixed with no cost. You know, it just took some time, but all the components could be salvaged, and so it didn't have to spend any money getting a new control knob or anything. All right, take care. So right now I have the ignition on. I just turned the fans off just to reduce the sound level here, and you can hear actually with the box apart, since the slide resistors are not there, it's not able to get to any particular space. You can see the motors running. I don't know if you can see it on the video, but the motor's running because it's trying to get to a right spot, but it's not able to get there. And then when I slide this slide switch, I can see the motor reversing direction. You can see it shaking there when I slide this back and forth, right? So here you can see, you see it shaking like that, right? So it's switching directions because basically the slide switch not there, it's kind of in the middle. So if I change it to one side or the other, you can see that thing moving back and forth, and if I put it in the middle, it should be able to find a happy spot. So there you go. Now the motor stopped, right? So I found like in the middle spot where the it's happy and the motor stops running. And just in case you do take this box apart, that's how the gears go together. You might have to take the black arm off in order to get it together properly. I was able to finagle it together, but you can see that intermediate gear goes over top of the big gear. I actually had it upside down. Alright, there you go. Got the box back together, so I still have this stuff hanging out here so I can slide this thing and see the thing in the box moving here. Let me aim it at the box, and then you see I'm moving the slider in the dash, so this is putting it all the way one way. Now it's stopped, and then I move it all the way the other way. So I already moved it, it's just slow to catch up. There you go. You saw it stopping, so it's working properly now, which is what we want. Alright, so now I'll need the patient job of putting everything back together. Alright, good luck.